Good morning. It's good to see each and every person here this morning. I know it's not easy getting out with kids. I get that one for sure. I understand it's not easy to get out when the weather's like it is and it's nasty and traveling, but I appreciate your willingness and your desire to be here. It's like we talked about downstairs in the class this morning, the high school class. We're here for a purpose. We're here to learn more about our Savior that came from heaven to this earth so that we might be saved. We might have hope beyond what's here. And we're here to worship Him. We're here to give Him all the glory and praise and honor that He deserves because He did do what He did for us. That He sent His Son. Even though we had turned our backs on Him, He did that for us. And because of that, He deserves our praise, our worship, our attitude, all for Him. And I appreciate your desire to be here this morning. Because it's very encouraging to see people that are ready and willing and want to serve Christ. You know, you can have a building full of people, but if they're here just to check a box, if they're here just because, well, if I don't, my spouse is going to get on to me, or my mom and daddy's going to get on to me, or the preacher might call me, or so-and-so might be calling me. If I'm here just to check a box, it's like I told them this morning, let's just leave because we're just playing church. But if you're here this morning and you're wanting to serve, you're saying, I want to be different. I don't want to just have the mundane, quote-unquote, Christian life. I know what Jesus Christ of Nazareth did for me. I know what He did for me. And because of that, I want to teach others. I want to serve. I want to worship. I want to be more. So that's what I want us to challenge ourselves this morning is how can we be more? More than just above the status quo. Now, I'm not going to point fingers at anybody this morning. Everybody has their own level of what they think that they're able to do in serving and teaching. But I want to press and encourage you to do more. What can I do to make the Caneyville Church of Christ? What can I do? You can only answer that yourself. What can I do to make this world a better place? That more people that are brought to Christ, that there be more Christians. What can I do to make this church grow? What can you do? Now, I have got, as Amelia's called it before, the Smithson gift of gab. I do. I know I do. I can talk to you about anything from football to farming to machinery to Civil War to World War II or aliens. I can talk to you about it. I have the gift of gab. And because of that, I try to, the best of my ability, and I know I'm not a professional preacher. That's why I'm an agronomist. And I'm not a very good at one of them sometimes. But I try to do what I can for the kingdom. And if I've got the gift of gab, I feel the responsibility that I need to tell everybody about Jesus. Because I know what Jesus did for me. I know that there was a period in my life when I was in college that I was not the man that I was supposed to be, that I was not the Christian that I was claiming to be, and because of that, that if it wasn't for Jesus, I would have been lost. I'd been lost. But because of Him, because of what He did for me, He allowed for me to be redeemed. He allowed for me to be able to be in the position that I am. I promise you. 5 years ago, Caleb Smithson would not have thought that he'd been a preacher out of a congregation getting up here every Sunday morning. Amelia, would you have thought that? Nope. Caleb 6 months ago didn't hardly think it. Yet here I am almost 5 months into being the full-time preacher here. You believe it's been almost 5 months now? Pretty crazy. But I want to do what I can to make this congregation grow. And I hope that you do too. What can we do to be encouraging? Because when I see people that are willing to step up, they're willing to go beyond the ordinary, that encourages me. But it also, on the flip side, is discouraging to me. It's discouraging to a lot of people when they see someone that's not ready, not willing to step up. That they're here every Sunday, yeah, they go through the motions, but they're not doing, or they're not acting, they're not saying, what can I do to make this congregation a better place? What can I do to help you? What can I do to help your children? That can be discouraging. That's why what we read, or what Austin read in our scripture reading, is so important. In Isaiah chapter 6 and verse 8, he points out this perfect example. He says, "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?' Then I said," talking about Isaiah, "Here I am, send me." Isaiah had that willingness. He said, hey, everybody else might be able to have the status quo of just being an Israelite and going through the flow, but when God needs somebody, hey, here I am, send me. I want to help. I want to do what I can. Here I am, send me. You might not have anybody else, God, but you need somebody? I'm here. I'm willing to serve. I'm willing to teach. I'm willing to help this place grow. What can I do, God? I'm here. But we also see examples of people that is not saying that. And so that's what I want to talk about is Moses. When he said the opposite of what Isaiah said, and he doesn't say this verse word for word, but I thought it made a pretty good sermon. Here I am, don't send me. Do we have that type of attitude? Let's study about it. Turn to Exodus chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3, we see Moses. Now, if you know anything about Moses, Moses was from the tribe of Levi. He had been put in the basket by his mother, Jochebed, when he was a baby because of the decree of Pharaoh saying that all males born of the Israelites must be thrown to the Nile River. She couldn't stand to see her little baby be done like that. What happens? Well, he's found by the daughter of Pharaoh and raised in the royal household. But because of different things that happen in his life, he finds himself, as we find in chapter 3, as a shepherd of the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, who was a priest of Midian. And he comes to Horeb, the mountain of God. And we see that Moses, in this example, and we won't read the whole thing because it is a fairly lengthy reading. But from Exodus chapter 3, verses 10, through chapter 4 and verse 13, Moses does his best to paint himself as someone that just isn't fit for the job. God wants somebody to lead his people out of slavery, to lead them out of Egypt and to the promised land. Now, we know, having the entire Pentateuch of what Moses is able to accomplish, that Moses does become the leader that God said he was going to be. That he is going to be remembered even to 2025 as the one who brought the Israelites out of slavery. But in Exodus chapter 3, Moses didn't see that in himself. Moses makes excuse after excuse after excuse as to why he is not the one that needs to step up. Is your name Moses? Maybe you're here this morning and you see things at this congregation that could be done, that can be done. But you say, well, hey, there's 80 other people there. They can do it. They can take care of it. I'm going to challenge you this morning. Don't be a Moses. Not in this aspect. I want to challenge you to step up, to be different, to be a leader, to take charge, because this congregation needs you. It needs your activity. It needs your enthusiasm. And I can't do it by myself. You can't do it by yourself. We got to work together for a common goal. But what about Moses? Moses gives the excuse that he might not be the answer. In Exodus chapter 3, in verse 10, we see that presented to us. It says, "Come therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, so that you may bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh, and then I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt?" And he said, "Certainly, I will be with you, and this shall be your sign that I have sent you, that when you have brought the people out of Israel, you shall worship God at this mountain." Moses said to God, "Behold, I'm going to the sons of Israel, and I will say, the God of your fathers has sent me to you." And they will say, "Who is he? What is his name? What shall I say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent you." You know, I've said this many times from this pulpit. Times change, but people don't. Moses gave the same excuse to God that we hear today. Who am I? Why me? Why should I have to be the one that serves? Look, think of all the other people that's in Israel. Aren't they more qualified? Look at all these other people. I've got a family. I've got 2 boys. Got a wife. I'm a shepherd for my father-in-law. I'm a busy man. Somebody else can do it. Who am I? Why pick me? Do we have that attitude sometimes? I know I've had that attitude. I'm busy. I know that was my excuse for long. Do they not realize how busy I am? I work daylight to dark. And then somebody wants me to come and do this or do that. I ain't got time. You make time. If you want to make a difference in the church, with family, with children, you can say, "Here I am, God, send me." I might not yet understand how I'm going to make it happen, but I know you know more than I know. I know that you have a purpose for me. I know that you've got a plan for me, and if God's got the confidence in me, there ain't nothing that can stop me. Here I am, send me. Or are you going to reply like Moses? Here I am. Don't send me. Somebody else can do it. Somebody else can take care of it. You don't want me. But we have to prepare ourselves. We have to discipline ourselves so that we make sure that we don't have the response of Moses of "don't send me." We have to have preparation in our life and in all that we do, that people can rely on us, that God can rely on us when it comes time for us to be able to serve. Because there's always going to be some type of excuse. There's always going to be something that comes up in our lives. But you know, in 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 15, Peter talks about this. He says, "But sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts always." Not sometimes, always. "Being ready to make a defense for everyone who asks you to give an account of the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence." Someone challenges you, "Chris, why do you do what you do? Brett, why do you do what you do? Why do you worship at where you worship at? Why do you participate in the way that you participate? Or why do you do like this?" Give it a defense. Be ready. When someone challenges you with what the truth is, be the one that's ready to say, "Here I am, God. I'm ready to reply." Remember Philip in the book of Acts? Out of all the different people that was in the area of Jerusalem, who did God pick to go teach the Ethiopian eunuch? Philip. "Here I am, God, send me. I'm ready. I'll teach him." Now, I might not know as much as some people. I might not know as much about the scriptures as some people. I'm just here to tell you, I know I don't know as much as there's a lot of preachers. I can think of one preacher in particular. His name's Rick Duggan. Preaches over in East Tennessee. You may or may not know Rick. I hope that we can get him up here for a gospel meeting sometime. Rick can take this Bible and read fluent Greek. This Bible could be in Greek, and he could read it in English to you. He understands the Greek language better than Caleb will ever understand the English language. Be quite honest with you. He's preached for a long time. He has that level of intelligence on the Bible, on Greek, on languages that I will never, probably ever be able to understand. I hope I can one day. Probably ain't going to happen though. I know that Caleb has things that he can't do. But that does not stop me from trying to press forward and say, you know what? I have an example of a brother or sister in Christ that has this type of experience, that can do this or do that. I want to be like them, because you know who they're trying to be like? Jesus. You don't think Jesus didn't have things in his life going on? He had brothers and sisters. He had family. He had a mother and father. He had friends. Worked with his father as a carpenter. What did he do? Here I am, send me. You don't think it wasn't nice living in the splendors of heaven? But by his own will, he comes to this earth and does what he does? What's your response going to be? Don't send me. Too busy. Got other things going on. I'm not qualified enough. But if God sees that you're the answer, we need to be able to respond and press forward regardless of the fact, because we need to be able to give a defense in all that we do. As Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15, he says, "Be diligent to present yourself approved to God as a workman who does not need to be ashamed, accurately handling the word of truth." How are you going to be able to accurately handle anything? By studying? By applying it in your lives? You know, one thing that I've learned to do in my job at Drake's is I can figure, me and Drago have these conversations on the phone quite a bit, I can figure about any fertilizer analysis on paper that you would want to be able to know. You know, figuring, and this is going to sound like Greek to a lot of y'all, but figuring how many units of nitrogen come out of how many gallons of 32% nitrogen and all. There's a lot of math behind that. I didn't think I liked math, and I still don't like math, but it's amazing how much stuff that you don't like that you end up having to do in your life. A lot of that's algebra too. I had a guy come to me with this load of fertilizer, and I had to figure out, he knew how many pounds total it was, but I had to be able to figure out how many pounds of nitrogen and phosphorus it was to make it out so that he could be able to make it to the next thing. Now, I didn't wake up at 18 years old knowing how to do fertilizer analysis like that. It took time. It took studying. It took application in my life to be able to do that. But I promise you, if Drago calls me at 10 o'clock at night, I can figure a fertilizer analysis for him. I've had that happen before. Not from Drago, thankfully, but from other people. If someone calls you at 10 o'clock at night and asks you, "Keith, what do I need to do to be saved?" "Roger, what does the Bible say about XYZ?" Can you be able to give a defense? Or are you going to say, "Well, you know what? The preacher or Billy or whoever, they've got more experience than that. I think you ought to call them." Or have you prepared yourself in your life as a Christian to say, "Here I am, God, send me. I've got the answer." The answer is XYZ. How are you going to know unless you study? He also gave the excuse that people might not believe him. In Exodus chapter 4 and verse 1, we see that. He gives that excuse to them. He says, and Moses says, "What if they will say they will not believe me or listen to what I say? For many will say, 'The Lord does not appear to you.'" That's an excuse. People might say to you, "Well, who are you? Why should I know what you did. I know what kind of life you used to live when you was in college, the way you used to talk at such and such, the way you acted and such. Who are you?" You know how you respond to that? Yep, that was me. Yep, I did do wrong. But I have learned better, and I know now from the Scriptures that that is not how a man or woman of God should act. Let me tell you what I know. Let me use my example of the things I've done in the past to be able to teach you for the future. Here I am, God, send me. Have we done things in our life that we regret? I think every single person in this room could answer yes to that, overwhelmingly. Have we failed God? Every single day. But the only way that I'm going to overcome that, the only way that I'm going to help my family grow, to help this church grow, to help my children grow, is by pushing forward and saying, here I am, God, send me. I want to help. I want to teach. I want to bring them to Christ. I don't want to be like Moses was. I don't want to look for somebody else to do it. You looking for somebody? God, I'm your man. I got you. Here I am, send me. Moses also gave the excuse that he did not feel qualified. In Exodus chapter 4 and verse 10, Moses says to God, he says, please, Lord, I've never been eloquent, neither recently nor in time past, for since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and tongue. That's a little bit of an excuse. Now, it is a legitimate thing to have a speech impediment. I do to an extent. When I get nervous, when I was a kid, when I was about Maddie's age, I had to go to speech therapy because I had a terrible stutter. I did. And even to this day, when I get nervous about some stuff, it'll come out for just a second. And it's very rare that it happens anymore, but it does happen. So if I do it up here sometime, just overlook it. It'll be over in about 1 second. But I have that. Something I've had to deal with since I was a kid. Moses gave the excuse that he didn't feel qualified. He gave an excuse. What does God say to him in verse 11? He says, who has made man's mouth? Or who made him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now then I go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you're about to say. You ever feel like you're not qualified for something? I have. Several times. When y'all asked me to be the preacher here back in January, I was willing. I did not feel qualified. I didn't. I still don't feel qualified, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I know that there are men that are much more eloquent speakers than I am. I know that there are men that are much more well-versed in the Scriptures than I am. But I feel that it is my duty. I told my boss when I sat down with him, when I told him I was considering this, I told Denny, I said, Denny, and those are in here in the room that know Denny, I looked at him and I said, Denny, I just feel like I've got to do this. I feel there's a message from Christ, and I feel I have got to preach, whether it's at Caneyville or wherever it is, I've got to spread the gospel. I've never felt that before in my life, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but I felt I had to do that. I could give all the excuses in the world, but I had to preach. I needed to tell people, because I knew what Jesus Christ had done for me. I had seen how in the past year, my faith had changed. I remember on December 31st of 2024, I put on Facebook a post about how in 2024 my faith had been challenged, how I almost lost my faith, and how by the end of 2024 that my faith had grown to a level that it had never been before. The reason why is because I quit making an excuse. I'll just tell you, Caleb was full of excuses. But when I quit making excuses, and I'm not saying this to say that I'm perfect, because Lord knows and y'all know I ain't. But when I finally quit saying, God, don't send me, and I said, here I am, God, send me, I could tell a difference in my life. I could tell a difference in my relationships with my friends. I could tell a difference in my relationship with my wife. I could tell a difference in relationship in my children. Because now I wasn't living for Caleb. I was pushing for God. I had changed. I quit making excuses. And I said, here I am, God, send me. And whether it was preaching at Caneyville or wherever it was, I had determined then that I was going to make a change one way or the other. What about you? Have we went through some trying times at Caneyville Church of Christ? You better believe it. Have we all experienced different things in our life? Not just in the past 2 years, I'm talking about in your entire life. Of things as Christians that weren't easy? Sure. My dad being a preacher as a kid, I think we were at 5 or 6 different churches growing up. Just, preacher's kid moving around. Was that easy? No. But when I quit making an excuse of all the things that happened in my past, or all the things that I could have done or should have done or would have done, and said, I can only change and affect for myself now. I'm going to make a change for my family. I'm going to make a change for the future. I'm going to make a change for Caneyville. I'm going to do what I can to help. For me, that was getting in this pulpit. For you, it'd be something else. If you want to get in this pulpit, by all means, Tracy, you're up next week. What can you do to make this church grow? Maybe you feel you're not qualified to be a Bible class teacher. I'm going to tell you, we need more Bible class teachers. There are people here that have taught in Bible classes for the past, I don't know how many quarters. And they deserve a break. If you haven't been teaching a Bible class, I'm going to encourage you. There are 2 spots in the back for next quarter that are not filled up. If it gets closer to the month of June, I'm going to start coming to people and say, hey, would you be willing to step up? You might not feel like you're qualified, but neither did Moses. We need you to step up. I promise you, these kids want you there. They don't care whether you think you're qualified or not. Those kids want you there because they are hungry for the truth. When your youngin can come up to you on Sunday morning and says, I'm ready to go, I'm excited to go to Bible class. That means that you are making a difference in that child's life. Don't let just the few that are teaching be the ones that have that honor and privilege. That can be yours as well. They don't bite much. And if they do, I'll whip Davey when he gets home. But we need Bible class teachers. I can't teach every class. Connie can't teach every class. We need Bible class teachers. So if you're here this morning and if you've never stepped up to do that, I'm going to encourage you this morning to say, here I am, sign me up. I want to help this church grow. I want to see these children grow. And because of that, I want to have the attitude of Isaiah. And I'm going to say, here I am, send me. Because we can be like Moses and say, send someone else. He says in verse 13, he says, please, Lord, now send the message by whomever you will. Anybody but me. Turn to Matthew chapter 26. We're almost finished. Matthew chapter 26 and verse 39. He says, and he went a little beyond them and fell on his face and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Goes on in verse 42, he says, and he went away again a second time and prayed, saying, my Father, if this cannot pass away unless I drink it, your will be done. You think it was easy for Jesus to undergo what he went through? He knew he was innocent. He knew the pain that he was getting ready to suffer from crucifixion. His disciples are over here asleep. They ain't got a clue in the world what's getting ready to happen. But him, being all-knowing, knows that he's getting ready to die. And that it's going to be painful. He's going to get beat to death. He's going to be ridiculed for people that don't deserve it. God, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. But not as I will, but as you. Here I am, send me. Now what if Jesus has had the attitude of Moses? Send someone else. I can't do it. Can't do it. Every single one of us today would be condemned to a sinner's hell. But I am so thankful that Jesus had the attitude that he was willing to serve. He was willing to give his life so that I might live. Here I am, send me. We got to have the attitude of Jesus. You know, too often we use excuses to cover up our unwillingness to serve. So what's your excuse? What's your excuse? If you're here this morning and you're not serving this congregation like you could be, what's your excuse? What can you do different to make this congregation a better place? Maybe it's, everybody's got different skills. Maybe it's leading singing more. Maybe it's doing this. Maybe it's teaching class. I said we need teachers. What can you do to serve? Maybe you're here this morning and you've never come to him in the first place. What's your excuse? Why haven't you come to say, I want to be Jesus's? I know that I'm in sin. I know that if I die today, that my eternal salvation is not where it should be. I don't have salvation. My eternal destination is not what it should be. What's your excuse? Maybe you're here this evening or this morning and you've become a Christian, but you ain't been living like you should. You've had things come your way. What's your excuse? What can you do different this morning? Whether that's being baptized into Christ, which I'd love to do this morning, or maybe it's coming back to him. What's your excuse for not serving God? Because I promise you, if you got one, it ain't good enough. There is no reason for any of us to leave here this morning not to have the attitude of, I want to serve, and I want to do everything I can to help make this place a better place, and I want to do it by being in the arms and hands of Jesus, the ones that came and died for me. There's no excuse. So let's leave here this morning with the attitude of, here I am, send me. Is there any need for salvation this morning? Come forward, we stand and sing the song, and Matt's selected.